Hello. Hello. I'm an ag. My name's John.
Hey, John.
The speaker tonight is from Hawaii. I'm from Minneapolis. Thank you. I thought Hawaii was the magic word, but maybe it's also Minneapolis. I don't know. So I want to just be real quick here because the real message that's going to be presented tonight is coming from Tom. And Tom is my grant sponsor. So just in the summer of 1999, there was this 32-year-old guy named John T. who was sitting in a rehab. And he had kind of just come off about a 2-week period of kicking dope, starting to feel a little better. For some reason, they kept extending my time in treatment. I couldn't figure out what was going on. And so I had a long weekend when they didn't have any programming. And so I finally got bored enough that I picked up the basic text. And when I did that, I read a story in that basic text. And that story is called Mid-Pacific Serenity. And I don't know what was in that story, really. I don't know if it was the travel and the freedom of going out into the world that I had never been able to do because I was shackled by my addiction. I don't know if it was the meditation. I don't know if it was just it was a story that didn't fit with what I had concocted as to what it would look like to be clean. Boring, suburbs, kids, fence, bad dogs that are small, you know. And it was a different vision, and there was something that I really resonated with. And I had no idea that through this process of recovery, that 4 years later, I would be not only clean, but living in another country in Asia. And then I would be at a Narcotics Anonymous convention in Bali, Indonesia. And lo and behold, who was sharing? Well, it was me and Tom C. And at that convention, I asked the guy to sponsor me, a guy named Bob W. And as it turns out, and I didn't know this at the time, but Bob W. was Tom's sponsee. There's a lot more that has happened along those lines. We get out of the way and weird stuff starts happening. So Tom's story, it's a little weird, it's a little freaky, it's a little throwback to the 60s, but mostly and most importantly, it's about the heart. And it's about love and compassion. So you're in for a treat.
Aloha. Aloha. I'm Tom, very grateful addict. My heart is just so open. That's what happens at these places. They just burst open. I have no control over it.
Love you, Tom.
But I just want to thank the committee so much. Who's on all the people on the committee that put this on. I've been in service for many years. I've done conventions. I know what it takes. So everybody that had anything to do with this, thank you so much. And I want to thank each one of you for being here tonight to support me in my life. And my life is about carrying this message. And the message is the spiritual awakening. So I keep it real simple about what I talk about. That's what I talk about. I talk about my own spiritual quest that I've been on since my first meeting, which was 51 years ago. And there's many things that point to why the 11th step is so important that I'll get into tonight. And also, just know, I usually ask you to just take a moment, so I'll say take a moment right now. And within, just gently ask your heart to open. So it's like mine. But really, just ask your heart to open, because my message isn't about the words, it's about my heart speaking to your heart. And that's how we get the message, It's not. So I'm just going to have a disclaimer. I really am an airy-fairy guy, And so you don't have to get. I'm just going to tell you that now, so you can just. I accept it. You can accept it, so you don't have to walk out when I get too weird. You know what I mean? But I always like to start back as far as back in the early 30s to begin with. Because a person like us went to Carl Jung because he couldn't stop drinking and using. And after a while, he spent time with Carl Jung. And after a while, Carl Jung said, I can't, he was honest enough to say, I can't help you. But in a few rare instances, I've seen people like you change, brought on by a profound personality change. It was brought on by a spiritual experience. So that meeting with Carl Jung, that was the big bang of 12-step recovery. And a lot of stuff happened in between that, and then he left and got, and the whole 12-step movement started. And we're just lucky to be a part of one of the most powerful things of the 20th century is 12-step recovery. It's unbelievable. It's worldwide. And it's it's a privilege to be a member. So anyway, so that's one reason why I think the 11th step is so important, and the steps, because we have to have this awakening. And it's not about a one-time awakening. It's not about getting an aha moment, or going through the steps with your sponsor and, man, you just really got something, that's beautiful. But it's about many, many of those again and again and again and again. That's what our life's about. The spiritual life is about a life that we have to keep reminding ourselves about. We have to keep reminding ourselves to practice it. Because I'll guarantee you, it is so easy to wake up in the morning and be dwelling on yourself like nobody else even exists. That takes no practice. That's what we do automatically. We dwell on self. We worry about self. What takes practice is to wake up in the morning and think of someone else first. And what can I do for the, recovery, the suffering addict? So that's why this spiritual life is called a practice. So in the 60s, I lived out on the North Shore of Oahu all through the 60s and 70s. And it was a time, Tim Leary and his boys were out there then, and it was. And I tell you, if I wasn't shooting dope, I was smoking hash and LSD, taking LSD, all for spiritual reasons. And I was, you know what I mean? There was a spiritual movement going on, and I knew there was something better than what I was doing, but I didn't know how to get it. I started meditating in 1966. I got these lessons in the mail, and I've been meditating ever since, by the way. And so I got these lessons in the mail, and the trouble is, when I got them, I'd get all set up to read them and study them, and I'd shoot a little crystal meth and sit down and try to study my lessons. Well, if you think a lot now, it didn't really work. But see, something in me wanted this other thing that was happening. And I went and got involved with, I did that. And I did everybody's sort of TM, I did all that. But, I just kept using. That was the problem. I was scared, I was lonely, I just didn't feel like I fit in, anywhere. And it was all back. At first, maybe the booze and drugs helped take that away, but it all came back. So anyway, I'm sitting, 1968, February. In other words, 68, and now it's 1990. So that was 51 years ago right now. I was living there on the North Shore, and I was in this little house that was right on the beach. Yeah, I don't know how many surfers are in here. Probably not a lot, but it was right on the point of Rocky Point, which is a cool surf spot. And there was a vacant house next to mine that was a big 4-bedroom beach house, and it was for rent or sale. And all of a sudden one day this strange lady showed up and reached for the key above the door and moved in. And the next morning, the landlord was actually out there to show the house to somebody and found this lady in the house, and he said, "What are you doing here?" She said, "God told me to come here. Can you have the electricity turned on?" And so what happened is that this woman was in the other fellowship at this time, 8 years clean, and she meditated she had had the 20th Century Fox spiritual awakening, where it's pure white light and love just rushes through you like nothing. And she was never the same. Her name was Florence at that time, and they started calling her Flo Bird, because she'd go back in the room. She'd go into bars and yank people off the bar stool and take them to meetings. She was on fire because she had this awakening that was just so intense. And she would talk about the birds. Don't you know they don't worry about anything? They live in the moment. So they started calling her Flo Bird for Florence. So anyway, what happened, this woman got up and meditated every morning for 2 or 3 hours. And at this time, I lived on the North Shore, and she lived in Kaneohe, which is about 40 miles away. I think she was at some halfway house helping out. But anyway, that morning she was given guidance. And she lived her whole life on the guidance she got. And by the way, that is what we're supposed to be doing too. Okay? The 11th step says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us. There's the key right there. Praying only for knowledge of God's will. That's our guidance. But we got to dare to get out of the way. We got to slow down so we can listen. We've got to dare to step into the unknown like she did. And she left that house. She drove out to the North Shore and was led to the house next door to me. I had never heard of any 12-step recovery in my life at that point. It was very anonymous in the 60s. And so she moved in next door to me, and I had been attracted to all this guru stuff, all the stuff that was happening in the 60s. The gurus were coming to the West, and so that really, there was something in me that was really trying to get that. And so here's this lady that radiates everything I'm reading about in these spiritual books. She's on fire with love, and she moves into the house next door to me and starts a meeting, and I went. And that's how I found out I was an addict. And you know what took me back to the second meeting? Not so much that I was in a room with people talking about using the way I used, and they weren't. It was more, one guy that night talked about his fear. He talked about feeling separated from life. He talked about the intense fear of not fitting in his whole life. And I went, oh my God. I really thought I was the only one that felt that way. That felt that intense separation, like there was something wrong with me. And that's what got me back to my second meeting. So I started going to meetings. That was February of '68, and I was in the program then, but I kept, I would stay clean a few weeks sometimes. I'd stay clean a couple of months, I would always pick up again. There was just that reservation. Maybe it's okay to smoke a joint if I don't shoot any dope, or if I, you know what I mean? We know how it goes, And it didn't work, But I kept showing up for meetings, and I kept showing up for meetings, and learning how to really meditate, because that woman talked about the 11th step constantly, and I was already doing that, so I continued on learning that. And what happened is I went back to California for, I don't know if the microphone sounds weird to you, but it sure does to me. But anyway, I went back to California and for a little while, and a good friend of mine, Tom M., had just gotten out of Atascadero Hospital for the Criminally Insane. And he came over to me, because I'd always been in Hawaii since the early 60s, and I was just back for a while, because he said, I want to go to Hawaii. And I said, okay. And so we were sitting there getting loaded, but I was 12-stepping him, because I was. So I was telling him about this lady, and the program and all that. And what he got, the message I carried, which was beautiful, the message I carried to him was, he thought, if I get hard up, I'll find this alcoholic woman and shack up with her. That was the message he got. But anyway, so he did. I told him to go to the North Shore, Sunset Beach, and he gets out there late at night, like 1 o'clock in the morning. He goes down on the beach and goes to sleep. So he wakes up in the morning and he's going, oh my God, have I ever made a mistake? What am I doing here? I have no dope. I'm totally strung out. And here he just thought he'd made the biggest mistake in the world. In the meantime, Flowbird wakes up every morning early and meditates. So at this point, she's just up about a half a mile up the beach at a place in front of Velzyland. So in meditation, urgently it says, get down to Sunset Beach right now. Get there right now. So she gets in the car and she pulls down, walks out to the water, and she goes, okay, puts her hands on her hips like this and goes, okay, God, here I am. What do you want? So Tom wakes up and sees this woman, because I had shown him a picture of her. And he goes, oh my God, and he walks up to her, and he starts mumbling because he can't talk. And she hears my name. And she says, you're why I'm here. Put your stuff in the car. And this last December 18th, just a couple months ago, he turned 50 years clean. So I really believe in the 11th step. It's a powerful, powerful thing, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to understand it and get clear with it and keep showing up with it. That's something I never miss in a day. I never miss sitting doing the 11th step when I first wake up in the morning. It'd be like leaving the house with no clothes on or something, So, but it takes practice. There's so much practice involved, and stuff like that. So anyway, we started tracking. There was a bunch of hippies on the North Shore, and I started telling them about this lady, and a bunch of people got clean. And we were the first people in Hawaii that went into Honolulu to the other fellowship and identified ourselves as addicts. And in those days, everybody said addict, alcoholic. It was forgiven because we didn't know anything else. But we were some of the first people, and everybody was real nice with us. But one time, this one member had called WSO. This was 1973 because we had just gone to the other fellowship. And in 1973, this guy got literature from WSO, from Jimmy Kay, and went and rented a room at Fort Tarusi in Waikiki. And one Sunday night, took us. He said, come with me, you guys. This is for you. That meeting's still going. And that meeting, when it started, was about maybe the 25 or 50th meeting in the whole world. That's how much we've grown now. And that was 73 to now. And now there's just thousands of meetings. But, we all of a sudden I remember when I realized I was about 13 or 14 years clean, and all of a sudden I went, wait a minute. Now there's NA every night. I don't have to go to the other fellowship. You know what I mean? And I remember just making that choice, that I can be used more in Narcotics Anonymous than I can anywhere else, and it just happened. All of a sudden, the fellow NA grew. It took a while, but, all of a sudden we had meetings every night. So it's a great fellowship. So anyway, I told you, I saw this lady go around the world 2 times, completely around the world 2 times with no money, by just listening to her heart and following it. And wherever we went, we traveled the whole U.S. all the time. wherever we went, and settled. Sometimes we lived in tents. Sometimes we lived in a mansion on the beach. But wherever we were, we started meetings, in our house for anybody looking for a spiritual way of life through the 12 steps. And we had these meetings that were like 50 people big and would go for 3 or 4 hours, because hearts were opening, and that was what we were always told, if we put recovery first, if we put carrying the message of NA first, all else will be taken care of. All else will be taken care of. So I've been trying to put that into action for 47 years now. I've been clean 47 years because I bounced in and out. I bounced in and out for 3 years, so that's what happened to me. But here I am. I think I'm clean today. Just for today. But anyway, my recovery has taken me on many, many adventures of learning. And I look at one of the reasons I'm Mary Ferry is also because my base camp was the 60s, the North Shore of Oahu. So, I couldn't help. If my base camp would have been prison, I would have been carrying a different message probably, But my base camp was hitting bottom, and instead of waking up on Skid Row, I woke up under a palm tree with my face in the sand, But it was the same Skid Row inside that anybody had to hit. So I just started really putting this thing into practice and ended up getting married, which, well, for one thing, I never thought that would happen. I never thought I would even... Anyway, I kind of look like... And I have a beard again, but I had this real long beard and ratty hair and everything. I kind of look like a caveman, like a Cro-Magnon or something. But and I was always wondering where my soulmate was, you know what I mean? And as I look back, I said, no wonder I didn't have a girlfriend. Look at you know what I mean? When I look at my pictures, but... I just really wanted a girlfriend in my life, and there wasn't one there. So, I took vows of celibacy. I said, well, if I'm not getting laid anyway, I might as well make a spiritual practice out of it, right? So I actually did. I actually stayed completely celibate for 2 years, no masturbation. If I had a wet dream, I knew God got me off. It was a practice, But, and also I made vows. This is what I didn't wear a loincloth, but I should have. I was so airy-fairy. So I did this whole celibacy thing for 2 years and everything. And then I saw this movie about St. Francis. The name of the movie was Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon. And St. Francis is building his church in the snow, and he's barefooted. And I go, that's what I got to do. I got to take a vow not to wear shoes. This is all in recovery, not when I was using it. But so I did. I went barefooted for a year, and I remember one time I was at a meeting in Virginia Beach, and we lived about 20 blocks away. It was snow on the ground and everything. And I remember I got into something. It must have been over some girl or something. I usually was in a tizzy over that. So I remember I left the meeting and walked home in the snow, barefooted. And when I got there, once I got in the house, I'd noticed my feet were bleeding like mad. I'd walked over glass and didn't even know it. But this is what I had to do to stay clean, believe it or not. This weekend I've been sending a lot of pictures home to my family and stuff like that. And I didn't bring any more. The clothes I brought were clothes I would wear in 60-degree weather in Hawaii. But I've done okay. I had a picture of me by the fireplace with my legs crossed. See, I don't have any socks. I never wear socks. And everybody's going, "Where are your socks?" Little did they know I already did a whole year barefooted in the winter, so I can handle no socks. But anyway, it's been great. I come in here like this, and wondering what was going to happen with the I keep forgetting the polar vortex guy. I met him face to face, and now the weather's getting warmer. That's how I like it. But yeah, I brought a little Hawaii sun with me. But anyway, so there's been many things that I've had to do to just to keep growing and recovering and changing. And see, what I understand and know is that everything's always changing. Everything's impermanent. Everything, even your spiritual path. Because guess what? I'm not doing that kind of stuff anymore to be spiritual. I still practice every day, but just to show you, if my spiritual path changed, and it will change again. I don't know what I'll be doing in 10 years if I'm still on the planet. It'll be something else. I'll come to some level that's different. So I try not to get hung up on all that, but about my spiritual. I just do the best. Look at the guy that talked. Dennis was talking about. I'm a big step guy. Okay, I really believe in working the steps. I've worked the step countless of times. I sponsor a ton of guys that work the steps. I really believe in that. But what he said, and what that means is working the steps, living the spiritual principles. Because looking at step 1 and saying, I'm powerless over my addiction, my life's unmanageable, doesn't help me at all. It's not till I bring in the spiritual principle of surrender and honesty and start incorporating those spiritual principles in my life. That is how I change. So every time I go through the steps, and I would like to say, I don't know what I'm supposed to say tonight. I have a million things I'd like to say. And and an hour isn't even enough, but it's okay, it's enough. I mean, one time after my first trip to India, I went to India, and I'll get into India because it's one of my favorite spots on the planet. But I went to India and came back, and I spoke in Texas. It was the early 90s, and there was about 2,500 people there, and I started speaking. Anyway, when I sat down, I discovered I'd been up there for 2 hours. I went into what I call a recovery blackout. No, I had no idea. I would never do that on purpose. And nobody had said anything. They all were very quiet. A pin could drop, you know what I mean? They were loving the stories about India, I guess. But now I've always been very conscious of... Oh, and those were the days they had cassette tapes. And they had to sell 2 of them for my one time. To get it, to fit it on. But anyway, so I'm keeping an eye on the time. John's going to... I forgot to even look what time it was when I got up here. But anyway, I get an hour. But I get an hour at least. But yeah, so in my own program, I've gone through the steps many times. And I'll tell you, I do want to just share this, that because most of the time, what working the steps means to people is that they just hit a bottom somewhere. They're backed up against the wall over a relationship, over illness, over money, over work. There's something going on that has tragically affected them, catastrophically, and they've got to work the steps, which is a good time to work the steps, of course. But I found out in my recovery that I could work the steps on some really groovy stuff, that I didn't have to be backed up against the wall. And what happened in 1988, I'd been meditating at that time for 22 years, and 1988, I was some type of recovery going on. It's from 71, maybe, what would that be, almost 18 years or something, I had, and I'd been meditating for a long time. And all of a sudden I thought, my meditation doesn't seem like it's doing what it should. I should be doing all the meditation I do. Something else should be happening, And I was referring to angels appearing and, esoteric, going out into the astral dimension, having all this weird stuff, third eye open, whatever. I thought all that stuff should be happening. So I worked the steps with the subject matter, the 11th step. And that was the first time I'd done anything like that. Now I've done many sessions of steps on really cool stuff. And what I found out is that whatever I'm working the steps on, whether it's painful stuff that I'll get free from it, whether it's beautiful stuff, I'll get more free. And it'll be so. What happened when I did that session, I found out that all I was supposed to do with the 11th step was show up every day and just be with whatever arises and falls away, and that I would get my guidance that way, that I didn't have to think it should be another way than it is, that I just show up every day and let it happen. And today, some of the most beautiful meditations I have is when I just sit down and invite what's uncomfortable into my life. Just whatever I don't want to face or I feel scared of, I just invite it and I sit with it. And it's so healing, it's just so healing. So I did that, and then I was asked to speak in India. I went back to India and spoke, and I remember I started a new session of steps, and I knew I could never say anything about it in the U.S., but I could tell the Indian dudes what I was working them on, And that was, the subject I picked was, what is left for me to learn that's very important, what spiritual principle, what on my path is that I really should learn before I leave the body. What a weird subject, huh? India got it. They got it. But so anyway, I did that. And the funny thing is, I got an answer at the end of the steps, because that's what happens. And the answer was I should learn more compassion for myself and for others. Now here's the beautiful part. This is beautiful. So I did that, and I went and with my sponsor and did usually when I do the steps 1 through 12, I never do a step where I think, oh my God, that was so great. Man, am I going to grow from that? Usually I'm just showing up right now at the step and going, what am I even saying this for, But it's the process. It's the 12-step process that works. But anyway, this 1/3 step I did seemed like, wow, it was so cool, because we went to a Buddhist temple, lit incense, I did my 3rd step prayer. It just seemed like one of the most powerful things I had done, And so we left and everything like that. And about 3 weeks later, I went to the doctor, and I was 56 or something, and I was just getting a checkup, and they did the PSA test that men should all get from their 40s on, I think. And it turned out I had prostate cancer. And I started to cry, because I always thought I was the healthiest guy on the planet, just because of my lifestyle. I've been a vegetarian, by the way, since 1966. Haven't had a bite of fish or meat since then. And so I ran marathons. I was the healthiest guy on the planet, And all of a sudden, here I'm diagnosed with cancer. And I did. I cried for a couple hours. My wife and I went and told my son, and all of a sudden, my wife, so I had a few years before that gotten in touch with something using the spiritual principle of hindsight, that nothing bad has ever happened to me in my recovery. Because I could look back. I went through horrendous things like we all have. But as I look back in hindsight, I saw that if that hadn't happened, this wouldn't have happened. And it all led to a beautiful experience, you know what I mean? And so I had that going, and all of a sudden I told B, I said, wait a minute. Nothing bad has ever happened in my recovery. So who says this getting cancer is bad? And I remembered, what did you just do your 3rd step on? Compassion. What a beautiful way to have compassion, but to get cancer myself. And I really meant that. I was thrilled. I went, oh my God. And my wife and I started calling it the Cancer Adventure. And by us calling it the Cancer Adventure, it took all the pressure off the family. All of a sudden, everybody thought, well, he's so happy about it. They didn't have to worry about getting sad, you know what I mean? And I remember what was really important to me was to get nerve-sparing surgery, and they hardly even did it in those days, because when we went to the doctor and they gave us the result of the biopsy, he said, you've got cancer, it's an aggressive tumor, you should get this thing out of there. And I agreed. But he said, you'll 100% chance you'll be incontinent. That's peeing, right? Peeing? Peeing. Anyway, you'll be incontinent and you'll be well, you can't get an erection anyway. I keep getting mixed up with those words. Now, I mean, that's what he told us, and we just said, thanks for sharing. And And we went off and we got more opinions, and I found out about nerve-sparing surgery, and I found out I could do because normally in those days, then they just took out both bundles of nerves, which is what brings the blood forward, So anyway, long story short, I go to LA to get this, and I'm in a meeting the night before I go into surgery. I'm in LA, don't know anyone, and I'm way in the back of the room, pretty good sized meeting, and all of a sudden everybody had talked, and this lady goes, well, what about you back there? Called on me, and I went, okay, so I'm Tom, I'm a Grateful Addict, and here's what I'm doing here. And I'm blessed to have cancer. I'm on the adventure. It's going to take me to beautiful places. I just went into this thing, how I really was feeling. At the end of the meeting, this lady came up to me and she said, my God, I feel like I'm supposed to congratulate you. But to me, it was what this program gives us, a surrender to what is happening right now, without fighting it or trying to change it. That's the real gift of freedom. When we can see things as they really are, whatever is happening in this moment, and when we can do that, we are totally free. Totally free when we don't have to try to change every moment that happens to us. Because then we're fighting it, So, oh yeah, by the way, so I get the surgery, and months go on. Now, I said this I spoke at the 2003 World Convention in San Diego. I was the Sunday speaker closer, and I shared this in front of 10,000 people, so this is nothing. But what I said is that I got the surgery, everything came back, it's all working. I can't hang a bathroom towel on it anymore, but it's working. So anyway, I love the steps. I just finished a set of steps this last year. And by the way, when I do work the steps, something always takes place in my life to enhance the subject of the steps, right? Just like that, the cancer thing. So I tell my wife I'm working the steps on my own death. And she goes, great, now you're going to die. But no, really, it was a very powerful thing to do, because in my meditation practice, it's all about being present. I think that's what meditation's about. John said it today. It's not about shutting off the mind or anything. It's about just being present and being aware of everything that's coming and going, but not clinging to any of it, or or running from any of it. So, I don't know where I was then, but that's the truth, though. Don't run or cling. But anyway, where was I going? A hint, huh? Oh, steps on death. Yeah. So I did this. Thank you. No, I'll be 75 Friday. The mind. Aging, a whole convention you could do on that subject. But anyway. So anyway, I did a set of steps on death. And so immediately during my first step thing, I found a guy that was in the other fellowship that had ALS. And it was getting worse and worse. So I started going down to his house. I do a practice called sound healing, where I take Tibetan bowls. I have a set, and I play them, and the sound it's like a bath. They call it a sound bath or sound healing. So I'd go down there once a week with him and do a guided meditation and do Tibetan bowls. That went on for over 2 years. And then he progressed. And his wishes were he decided it was time to pull the plugs, because he had this left. That's what he could do. That's where it got to. That was all he could do. And he just wanted me there when they pulled the plug, playing the bowls when he made his transition. So that was really an honor. So that's the kind of stuff that came into my life when I started doing on death. And some other guy I started working with that was dying. And then this is really weird. So I had this really cool sponsor I'd had for 30 years. and we were doing the steps on death, right? And I was on steps 6 and 7, and had shared it with him and stuff like that. And all of a sudden one morning, he was a really famous marine biologist, and he had to go to the East Coast to do some workshops. And his wife called me in the morning and said, Paul died last night on the East Coast. My sponsor, who I'm working the steps with on death, dies. It was really, God, it was weird, you know. But I won't even try to explain this to you because it's way over my head even. But I finished that set of steps. I was on 7. I finished that set of steps with Paul on the other side. So we'll just leave it at that. It worked. But anyway, you know, I tried to live my life, and I tried to listen, and I tried to step out into the unknown, and I try to be of service where I can, and stuff like that. And about miracles, you know, I mean, there's so many I could talk about with all the travels with Flowbird, because it was just one thing after another, never having any money, always just going to where we were guided to, the way things worked out. They were miracles. But I love this one little story. So I'd been to India a few times, and I got this word. This was another time they were going to have a convention, and they wanted me to come speak. And, you know, they don't have money to pay your way over there, you know what I mean? And so my wife and I were going to go, and I was thinking, but business was kind of weird. It would seem like I didn't know if I was supposed to spend the money to do it or not. So I just started sitting with it, you know, praying for an answer, you know. I said, okay, God, I'm willing to go and just go whether the money is right or not, you know, or I'll stay here. I'm okay either way. So I kept praying on that. And it was getting down to, like, the plane was leaving in about a week or 10 days. Those were the day in the 90s before they had all this stuff. You could buy your ticket at the last second, and it didn't matter. So anyway, it's getting down to the wire. I mean, it's like a week left. I got to make up my mind here, and I'm not getting any sign. So I go into my meditation room one day and close the door, light some incense, and I sit. And I said, okay, I'm not getting up till I get a sign. What am I supposed to do here? Well, I sat and I sat and I sat, and nothing came. So I couldn't believe it, you know. So I get up, I walk out of the meditation room, I close the door clicked as the phone rang. And it was a place that about 8 months before that we had donated some money, and they had a drawing. We just won first place, a round-trip ticket to India. Within 1 second after I closed the meditation door, I got my guidance. So I think it can be that way for all of us, but we just have to take a risk and not hang on out here, you know what I mean? Because, look, I've been with my wife for 33 years. John, where are we at?
25.
I've been, huh?
Yeah, 25 minutes left.
Okay, so look, I've been with my wife now 33 years. We have a lovely marriage. She's my best friend. By the way, when she came into the program, when we met, she was in her first year. I was 13 or 14, I know. But it's work. It's work. But here's the miracle. Here's the miracle. She was on welfare because she had just done all this treatment this year, you know, so, you know, get it. And I just, you know, now she's the most sought after psychologist on the Big Island. You know, she was guided to go back to school. She went back to school, showed up, put her butt in the chair like you do at a meeting, and she's a doctor, you know. But anyway, that's the miracle. That's the miracle. But anyway, what I wanted to get at is that this is my best friend. But I know we're not going to be together forever. You know what I mean? She's going to leave, or I'm going to leave. You know, leave the body. So there's nothing to really ever hang on to, and that's what we get in trouble with, thinking there is. You know, if we had this much money in the bank, it would sure be a lot more fun. Or there's always something, you know. And when I had that prostate cancer, I learned that if I can't be happy, this is what came to me. It was in my heart, not in my head. But in the middle of that prostate cancer thing, before I had surgery, before I knew if they were going to get all the cancer, if I was ever going to, if I was going to have to become a monk right then, I didn't know what was going to happen. But anyway, in that period, that's when I felt all of a sudden, if I can't be happy right now, then when? Because it's always got a condition on it, right? And it never works because it just brings more unhappiness because we have to let go of that then. So it's better just to just be with life and let it flow and just want to give away your life to others. I know it sounds simple, but it's not simple. I don't think the spiritual path is a simple thing. Like I said, it takes an immense amount of practice and immense amount of hurt sometimes. It's the biggest thing. I told you that actually I enjoy when I'm going through a trip. Now, look at my wife is like a Zen master. Let me just tell you that first of all. So coming here, when they called me when I was talking to whoever I talked to in the committee and stuff months ago when we picked it, I went, oh my God, that's going to be the dead of winter in Wisconsin. You know what I mean? And I'd heard of these these portals, these vortexes. And I even posted on Facebook, I said, well, with 47 years clean, I'm still willing to go to any length to be of service. To prove that, I just said yes to go to a convention in the middle of the winter in Wisconsin, you know what I mean? So that, yeah. But I won't even get into all the, look at it. So anyway, I have physical stuff now. I don't know how I got RA, but I've got RA, which is rheumatoid arthritis, and I got regular arthritis, and I got torn rotator cuffs. I'm put together with cortisone shots, you know what I mean? It's just like, but, so traveling in little planes and getting all scrunched up isn't my favorite thing anymore. I used to travel the world, but anyway, so my wife told me, she is my little Zen master, I'm telling you. Because I just talk about it. I share everything, you know what I mean? It's not like I'm whining. It's not like I even care. I just tell you what's going on constantly. And sometimes it's a bit much, you know what I mean? Finally, she says, Tom, because I'm going, what about the plane tickets? What about this? What about... And she says, Tom, why don't you just go to Wisconsin one time when it's actually time to go? You know what I mean? I've been here 10 times, I could have called you a month ago and said, the talk was great, I made it on the plane, it was great. You know what I mean? Because I've been here so many times in my head, So, and then her favorite thing is she'll just go like this. She'll slam the bed. Stop the storyline now. You know what I mean? Stop that storyline. That's what we call it in meditation, is a storyline, because we get a thought into thoughts are okay, but we don't want to chase them. And when a thought gets away and gets in there and starts festering, it bites all its friends in. And all of a sudden, if you've got a court date next week, or if you're going to Wisconsin next week, or you've got a medical thing, in your head, it's going to turn into one of the worst things you've ever done. And there's not going to be any happy ending when you're in a storyline. Because we have the worst case scenarios coming up. But so all that stuff, there's stress in any. Look at our lives have real life stress in them, and it's okay to be stressed once in a while. But the thing is, it's okay to be a little bit stressed about coming here in the winter and not knowing what's going to happen with the planes. Am I going to be stuck in airports and hurting with RA and all that? But the thing is, 10% of the stress you feel is from the actual situation you're going through. The other 90% is all manufactured up here. So what we're doing, what I did for a few weeks off and on, was play that storyline. You know what I mean? That what's going to happen? How is it going to work out? And so, you're in pain, you're stressed out, you're full of fear about something that hasn't even happened yet. That's the way every storyline is. So the practice of meditation, we're trying to stop that storyline and get back in the present moment. and just let life unfold, you know what I mean? I'm kind of glad, because I'm totally open. I'm not some guru guy or anything. I have all kinds of things I'm working through all the time, you know what I mean? So I'm not trying to prove. That's why I like to share my insanity too, because then you can learn how not to do it. You know what I mean? Because I'm doing it for you. But anyway, so we have a blessed life, all of us do. And, where we live, we open our house up twice a month for 11th step work, 11th step meeting. I just keep it off. It's not on the meeting list. It's just where people can come and feel safe to practice step 11 and learn things about it. That, and John even said it. I think it was John. There is times if we work the steps in our life, we have to go outside the program once in a while. And that's for, especially when we're doing 4th and 5th steps, inventories, and we might have some heavy stuff that can't be fixed in here. We got to go to a professional. And meditation's the same way. Nowhere in our literature does it really, it's getting more and more so where it talks about it, but it doesn't really give you guidelines how to meditate, necessarily. So we have to go outside the program. So we've started a meeting at our house just for people to come to in recovery, where we can really talk about the 11th step at a deeper level that's not breaking the traditions in a meeting where a newcomer might be or something. So anyway, we love doing that. And I'm thinking, one thing I was thinking about earlier today was our book, How It Works and Why. And it's one of the first times we've ever the other program really never came out. The spiritual principles were always the how of the program: honesty, willingness, open-mindedness, those 3 things. That's what the other fellowship did, and we did that for a long time. Once we did How It Works and Why, though, we started naming spiritual principles in the book. And now, one thing though, NA just comes out with new books every other day. I can't keep up with them, but anyway, How It Works and Why, is really a good book, and it has a lot of stuff about spiritual principles in it. And actually, it's kind of where I met Kevin, because in the late 80s, early 90s, late 80s, I think we were both, he was from Iowa, I was from Hawaii, but we were both RDs, I guess, or something there. Anyway, he got asked to work on traditions, and I was asked to be on the committee that wrote How It Works and Why. So every 4 to 6 weeks, I'd fly back to Hawaii. I'd fly from Hawaii to LA and use the whole weekend as a study group, writing whatever was next, and then we'd leave for 4 weeks or so, and the writers would put together what we wrote. It was like an intense workshop for about 3 years. It lasted, And I got to get so every time we came to a new step that we were working on, they always said, "Tom, what's the spiritual principles of this step?" So I got to throw all my nonsense in there. But it's good because it really names the spiritual principles. Some. See, there's endless. The longer I'm clean and the more I work the steps, I come up with new spiritual principles. Like I said, that's when I realized that nothing bad has ever happened to me in my recovery. It's because I named a new spiritual principle, hindsight. In hindsight, I could see that where I ended up going through with all this stuff, you know what I mean? So yeah, it was... so the more you work the steps, the more spiritual principles are going to come into your life. And what I've really seen too is if I'm really working the steps and practicing my meditation, like being present and stuff like that, that I can't really act out on my character defects and shortcomings. It's almost impossible if I'm present and working and work in a program that's contingent on a spiritual life, that those things just don't come up. But now, on the other hand, they're never really taken away from me either. There's no character defect or shortcoming that I've wrote about and found out about that is gone forever. It's always there. But, if I live a spiritual life, my life based on spiritual principles, they don't have a chance to come active with me. So, yeah, very beautiful. Anyway, I remember, obviously this lady Flaubert left the body years ago in 1978. And we had bought land in New Mexico. We had 30 acres, actually, a bunch of us in the program. We'd go back and forth from Hawaii to New Mexico and stuff like that. And she got real sick, and so she was dying. And I just remember I woke up one morning, and, I'd been learning how to do guidance, follow the guidance. And so my guidance said to me that morning in New Mexico, I had my kids there, they were young, real young men, and it said, I got to go back to Hawaii now. It was urgent, go back to Hawaii now. And I was like, I didn't know what to do because Flaubert could have lived another 6 months. How could I ever leave before she left the body? So it was really a struggle. That the one thing she had taught us all along was to follow your heart no matter what and dare to step out there. And so I was confronted with that this day. And this one guy said, well, if you want to leave, Tom, I'll take you to LA and you can fly to Hawaii. But anyway, what happened is that she was just laying in bed kind of unconscious and everything like that. And everybody kind of scattered out. We all built our own houses there, and it was a community, And everybody was scattered. I was left in the room with her, right outside the room. And I was just sitting there meditating. And I think what I thought as I was doing this, I started picturing her laying in the bed, and I pictured white light around her, and I pictured a funnel going up like this. And I thought I was making all that up. And all of a sudden, I got goosebumps like I'd never gotten in my hair. It was on, I can't even tell you, my whole body went numb. I was just standing on end. And I didn't know what was happening. And I looked in the door, and there was and later I found out this is common when somebody leaves the body. There was a mist. The room was full of a mist. It was, I don't know what it was, but it had to do with her passing. And I saw her pass right up through that channel. It was one of the most moving things I've ever seen. And she used to always tell us, when I'm gone, just if you see a rainbow, it's me. So we're in New Mexico. It's a bright, sunny, blue day, and Flaubert's passed. And my friend Larry says, so we packed up the car, and within an hour we were driving out of the land. My kids, Larry, this guy giving me a ride to LA, and we stopped and looked behind us, and on the most gorgeous blue sunny day, a whole rainbow crested our land. So, I love that stuff. Those are all like this weird miracle stuff that happens, you know what I mean? If we just start to pay attention. I just know that this program, it's like somebody just said, if you look in the mirror, all I can say, I'm an addict of the hopeless variety, and if you're an addict of the hopeless variety, and you're in this room tonight, you are a miracle. We're all miracles. So what my life has consisted of that since then is just putting into action what I learned in my early recovery. Okay. Just putting into action what I've learned in my early recovery. I've traveled all over the place. I've spoken for NA everywhere. My first trip to India, I came out of the meditation room and I told my wife, I said, I think I'm supposed to go to India. I'd never been. But I had this gut feeling, these vibes, and big neon sign came up in my head, Calcutta. And all I knew was about Calcutta was that Mother Teresa was there, and Yogananda, that's where he was from. That's the first lessons I took from Self-Realization Fellowship. But anyway, I just felt like I was supposed to go to India. At that point in time, WSO had just sent some people to India to do a report. And their report was there was NA in Mumbai, Bombay, but there was no NA in Calcutta. and I was being led to Calcutta. So I get to India, and I just remember, look at the whole time I was there, I don't even know what the sky looked like. So much mass humanity going on in front of you, it's crazy. But I wanted to meet Mother Teresa, so I found my way. I went to the poorest part of town, rented a hotel for like $1.50 a night. Then I went out and got a cab, and I went to the Mother Center, and she wasn't available, and they said, come back and stuff like that. But they took me around. This one nun took me around to all like the death and where they pick people up off the street, death and dying, to that house, to the orphanage with the kids. It was just so moving. And then and I kept saying, I want to work with the addicts. Are there addicts anywhere? I kept asking this. And she took me to this, she finally dropped me off at this house. And it turns out that right across the street from this house, within 1 hour, at this little school, there was an NA meeting starting. And I had only been in Calcutta for 5 hours. One of the biggest cities in the world. And within hours, I was led to the NA meeting. And when I went to that NA meeting, they had one white chip that they passed among each other. And I kind of hooked up with this guy with 8 months clean and spent some time with him when I was there, 12-stepping him and stuff like that. And I'm still in touch with him. He just celebrated 30 years. And there was also a man called Father Egan there, the junkie priest, who was there working with Mother Teresa's priests to start a treatment center for addicts. And so I got involved in a little bit of that with them and stuff like that. But, I came back to India a few more times, and both my wife and I did get to meet Mother Teresa. And I met her several times, in fact, because when she was in town, you could just go they had a 6 o'clock mass every day, and you could just go there. She was always there in the back, being very humble. When it was over, you could go up and get blessed by her, And I actually wear these Tibetan bracelets, and I had this one bracelet that I had her bless, And what happened is that when all that prostate cancer thing happened, it happened because my dad ended up dying of prostate cancer, and that was the gift he left me. Was prostate cancer, I guess. But anyway, I went back, when he was dying, I went back to California, and I got there that day, and so he was kind of in and out of a coma that day, and I took my bracelet, the one blessed by Mother Teresa, and I put it on his arm, and I've done hospice training. I've done, that's why I did my own thing on death, because I'm kind of like, I think death is actually one of the most joyful things that can happen if you're ready for it and in tune, It's a final thing from this life if we've stayed present. But anyway, so my dad's going in and out of a coma, and I've got this bracelet on his arm, and he's picking away at it and everything. And I'm whispering in his ear all this little sweet stuff like, Dad, it's okay, you can let go. Dad, Mom's going to be okay, Cindy's going to be okay, I'm okay. Dad, it's time to let go. I'm just whispering all this stuff, And Dad, it's okay. And I'm asking, do you see angels, Dad? Do you see relatives? Do you see anybody? Just going on and on like this. All of a sudden, his eyes just pop open, and he goes, would you shut up? But he died with great dignity. He did. He died at home, and even when I did hospice training, what did I wanted to get these near-death experiences with people and everything. So my first client was this skinny little heroin addict. Who else? Right? That none of these older ladies could have even handled, I don't think, that were the other hospice people. So I got this little heroin addict that had AIDS, and he was just withered away, and all he wanted me to do is get him cheeseburgers. So there was no big angels and stuff like that with that. But anyway, look at, if you know how there's, I'm almost done here. There's movie star groupies, there's rock and roll groupies, right? All those kind of groupies. if I was a groupie, it would be for holy people and holy places. You know, I can't get enough of it, you know what I mean? And I just know that everything is just so impermanent in our life. And the sooner we learn that, we find out that right now, though, even everything I said, things can be taken away from you at this minute, you know, and you can lose money, you can lose this, you can do that. But right now, in this very second, you're standing on holy ground. You're standing on sacred ground. Because right now, maybe your wife is still sitting next to you right now, you know, or your best friend. So right here, right now, is sacred and it's holy. Namaste.
All right, we're going to do clean time countdown and get it pumped up in here. But first, if you have a medallion you would like to give to somebody, could you please come to the stage now? And also, I had earlier, a young lady had given me a medallion and a key tag. And I think, I'm not sure if you could come up here so I could kind of straighten that whole thing out, because I'm not sure what to do with it. So, if you could come up here so we can give it out. Yeah. You don't want to go first? You want to go first? Where is that lady? Or you want to first? Yeah. Hello. I'm Jay and I'm Adam. You guys can't hear me because you keep talking. I'm up here to give a medallion to my sponsor. He's one of the most important people in my life. You guys don't know this, but this convention's here because he wanted to collect his medallion at a convention instead of at a meeting. So, he definitely he lives his life not for himself, but for others. I'm very honored that he's my sponsor, my friend. He's the best man at my wedding. I love him dearly. He lives his life to help people, and he lives his life for Narcotics Anonymous. So, Bubba, will you come up here and get your medallion?
There's a lot of people up here, so I won't waste a lot of time. I'd just like to say the best part of me does this for you. And to you that's not here yet. Thank you.
I'm an actor named Kevin. I want to thank you all for being so welcoming. We came up here from Kentucky. We woke up. Today is my wife's clean date, so we decided to come celebrate with you. I love you very much, and she's celebrating 5 years today. Here's your medal.
I'm an actor named Karen. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Kelsey. I'm Angel's daughter. And this is my dad, John. Today is my mom's 3-year clean date. So, yeah. So Mom, I just want to tell you can come up here. I just want to tell you that I know we're going through some shit right now, but you're my rock, so I know we'll get through it. I love you.
If I can get it out. Yeah, give it to her. Bubs. You earned it. I love you.
I'm Angel. I'm an addict, as you already know. I just want to say thank you guys to my family, of course, for always being there.
Quiet, please.
I've been 3 years clean, and I still don't like to do this. Thanks to my family, my NA family, my sponsor family, in the Chippewa Valley area, and my higher power.
Hi, family. I'm Jill. I'm an addict. Could I have Hillary come up? Hillary. Hillary's sponsor couldn't be here tonight, so it's a privilege and an honor to recognize her 5-year clean date. January 28th.
I'm not doing that.
Thanks, guys.
Hi, I'm Mo and I'm an addict. I want Julie, please come up here, please. I'd like to honor one of my sponsees tonight is Julie. She has 3 years, and it's my 3-year medallion that I am giving her, that I got when I was at my 3 year.